This episode is sponsored by Smart Travel, a new podcast from NerdWallet. You know that one friend who always finds the best travel deals, picks the right cards, and somehow ends up in first class for the price of coach? How do they do that? Well, Smart Travel is like that friend, but in podcast form. They cover all things travel finance, like which travel cards earn their keep and which are just heavy, shiny metal, and planning group trips that won't ruin your budget or your friendships. So travel smarter and spend less. That's the key with help from NerdWallet. Follow Smart Travel wherever you get your podcasts. Armchair-Explorer is a part of the Voyescape podcast network. Check out all of their shows from around the world at voyescape.com. Welcome to Armchair Explorer on location. Travel and adventure stories recorded in the field in the most immersive way possible, designed to give you a glimpse of what it feels like to be there for real. Are you ready? Let's go. So we're going to Ireland today. I'm excited to share this episode with you. It is St. Patrick's Day if you're listening in real time when the episode came out. And if you are, I hope you got a pint of Guinness in your hand, or maybe a pint of St. Brigid's ale. What is that? Who is that? I hear you cry. Well, that is what this episode is all about. This is a story about Irish history, myths, legends, paganism, and a mystery that's lasted for centuries. My friend Nicola Brady presents this episode. She's an English travel writer, but she's lived in Dublin for about 15 years and writes about Ireland extensively. I couldn't go on this one, which I was gutted about. I love Ireland. But our producer, Jason Patton, who you may know from other episodes, braved driving on the correct left side of the road, despite hailing from Buffalo, New York. Quick reminder as well, our on-location episodes, they take a long time to produce, so we partner with destinations to make it happen. They help with the funding, but the storytelling is all ours, and this is a story I've been wanting to tell for a while. Shout out to Tourism Ireland for working with us on this and helping to set up so many cool experiences and interviews. Really couldn't have done that without you. Now over to Nicola and Brigid, who, as well as giving St. Patrick a run for his money, also happens to be the patron saint of one of my favorite things in the world, especially when I'm in Ireland, beer. Slange.
When you think of Ireland, thoughts of St. Patrick's Day are probably not too far behind. But after decades of parades, festivals and gigs celebrating Old Patrick, there's a new saint in town. Last year, St. Brigid's Day was decreed a national holiday in Ireland, and now there are a multitude of events taking place all over the country in her honour, from fiery theatrical processions to concerts in atmospheric cathedrals. But who was Brigid? Well, to answer that question, I set off around Ireland to see how she's celebrated and found that there's not one simple answer. And as with everything in Ireland, you never quite know what's around the corner. On our travels, we happened upon a pair of sisters brewing their own St. Brigid's ale, kids dressed as Batman, and barefoot pagans dancing around a fire. And all of these stories were new to me. My name's Nicola Brady, and I'm a travel writer. While I've lived in Ireland for 16 years, I really didn't know much about her. So, to begin my journey, I met up with producer Jason, who you'll meet later in the episode, hopped in the car and headed just 45 minutes outside of the city of Dublin. We are in Kildare, and I would say it's a very quintessential, small Irish town. We're in Market Square, which, as with most of the Irish squares, is a triangle, which is something I always really enjoy. But the interesting thing right now is that we have this statue of St. Brigid, and as we speak, lots of people are coming up to take their photo with it, and it's really cool to see this new character associated with Ireland that isn't St. Patrick. So she's got a trunk for her body, this glorious red hair that's blustering and blowing in the wind, and yeah, she's really drawing a crowd. St. Brigid is the patron saint of many things. Midwives, bees, cattle, blacksmiths and fugitives, to name just a few. But one of the most apt, considering she was a brewer herself, is the fact that she's the patron saint of beer. And right off the main market square in Kildare is a cosy pub serving something special in honour of Ireland's newest patroness saint.
My granddad, John, opened this pub in 1945 and it has been in my family. So my dad ran it and now I'm running it. So nearly 80 years in this premises.
This is Judith Boyle, the third generation manager of Boyle's Pub. So I think we've got to start by drinking a bit of Brigid's Ale.
Excellent, very good.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah, so lovely head on it. It's reddish brown, so technically we would have called it a red ale, which is a traditional Irish style of beer, but we brew it with honey in it, so technically it's a braggot. We had Irish malt, and then the honey that we use in it is from my dad's bees. Brigid, in general, was a beekeeper and really into agriculture and dairy and kind of the land. So the idea was myself and my sister wanted to brew a beer that kind of embodied all the good things about Brigid. So,
amazing.
Cheers. Or sláinte.
Sláinte, yeah.
She's one of those saints or goddesses or all the Brigids together that we grew up with, and it's always really nice to grow up with a really strong woman figure. And also she was a brewer, so there's an 11th century poem that was all about if she brewed a lake of beer she'd solve the world's problems. She was the ultimate socialite and wanted to solve people's problems by talking, and embodying that powerful female figure is a good way of celebrating. So yeah, I think it's been a nice way to celebrate Brigid.
A nice way to celebrate Brigid is to continue drinking this delicious beer.
Excellent.
So yeah, sláinte again. Thanks so much. As I finish my pint, I look out the window and see that almost every building in this little square bears some mark of the symbol of St. Brigid. Now, wherever you are in Ireland, on the eve of St. Brigid's Day, you'll see a lot of these bright green crosses around the place, woven from rushes and reeds. This distinctive cross is hung outside of houses in a tradition that goes back centuries, and there's many theories about why it's woven in this specific shape. Some say the points represent the provinces of Ireland, or the four seasons, or north, south, east and west. But whatever you believe, they're hung outside the home to get the blessing of Brigid and protect you for the year ahead. And just outside of Kildare, there's a building shaped just like one of these crosses, with four arms reaching out into the countryside and an eternal flame burning at its core. This is Soulless Brigid Centre and Hermitage, home of the Brigidine sisters.
The vision of the centre is to unfold the legacy of St. Brigid and how that legacy can speak to us today and its relevance for today.
This is Phil O'Shea, the centre coordinator.
We take the values that we've picked up from the stories and legends associated with Brigid, the value of care for the earth, the value of justice, peace, the key values that underpin everything that we do. The initiative, the centre grew from 1993 when two sisters, myself and Sister Mary, were appointed to come to Kildare. And in 1993, we held a Justice and Peace Conference in association with AFRI, Action from Ireland. And they were marking 10 years of using St. Brigid's Cross as a peace symbol. They decided to organise an international conference in Kildare. And the title of the conference was Brigid, Prophetess, Earthwoman, Peacemaker. And at the beginning, in the planning of the conference, somebody said, why don't we symbolically relight the flame of Brigid? And that's what we did. And at the end of the conference, somebody said, you can't let it go out again. So we took a spark from it, and we've kept it lighting here ever since. Hence, Solas Frida, the light of Brigid.
And it's a wonderfully serene space, this building, seeing nature from the outside, and then having rooms like this that are really a good place for sort of contemplation and meditation. And
everybody who comes into the centre talks about the sense of peace they find here. The idea, I suppose, when you're coming into the courtyard, you're stepping away from the busy world, stepping into the quiet.
And can you explain to me the story behind the weaving of St. Brigid's Cross and the relevance of what that means?
The cross is a very ancient symbol. It doesn't appear in any of the stories of the early lives of Brigid. Whether it was in pre-Christian times a sun symbol, we're not sure, like linking into the four seasons. But all we do know, for many centuries, there's a story associated with St. Brigid and the cross, and that Brigid was beside a dying chieftain, and would have picked up the rushes, which had been the carpet on the clay floor. And when he woke up watching her and what she was doing, and she said she was weaving a cross. So that is the story associated with the cross. And there's a whole ritual about the weaving of the cross on Brigid's Eve. Leading up to Brigid's Day, sometimes it was the man of the house went out and they said mindfully gathered the rushes and then wrapped them in a cloth and left them outside the door. And on Brigid's Eve, a young girl or someone named Brigid, or even the man of the house, went out and went around the house and knocked on the door 3 times and said, Teigi Vorgluna, Oskligi Vorsula, August Lig Breed Banaha is Jock. Go down on your knees, open your eyes, and let Blessed Brigid in. And they all responded, Shivaha, Shivaha, Toffal Sheriff Breed.
Could you show me how to make a Brigid's cross? I've never actually made one before.
Well, I have rushes here, they might be not the best. Rushes are reeds that are grown fluently in Ireland because it's a wet climate. You wouldn't find them in a in a dry climate. Just take one cross vertically, and then we put the other reed across so it begins to look like a cross. But then we change it completely. In we fold one across vertically. And the key to it, making the Brigid's cross, is to turn it 90 degrees. It's very meditative, actually, when you're doing it. People want them for their cars, people want them for their houses. There's a great sense of protection, I think, with it, that it stands for. So now you see the cross is taking shape.
The centre shape is really beautiful. It looks almost like a maze.
And the centre section is almost like a field when you look at a ploughed or harrowed field. If the centre is not done right, the whole thing falls apart. So if I let my hand go now, it would all fall apart. So we have to secure it at the last when we're putting in the last reed. One time I was weaving the cross with a group of prisoners who were out for a day. I was weaving the cross and we were weaving their hopes. And one of the rushes I was weaving broke. And I said, look, that's the way life is. Sometimes things don't work out. And another of the prisoners had 2 rushes and he gave one to the person whose brush had broke in. And I just think that was a lovely sense of weaving together. And the rushes are very fragile on their own, but together they're strong. So there's a lovely Irish phrase as well. Ní náart go curla céirle. We're only strong when we're together.
A brewer, a peacemaker, a prophetess. Just hours into our journey, and we've already heard so many different angles to the larger-than-life story of this woman. But she was a real living woman, and she spent much of her life here in Kildare. So, to learn more about the truth of her story, we walked just down the road to the Kildare Heritage Centre.
Brigid was the daughter of Downpatrick. He was a local chieftain, and her mother, Brushock, was actually a slave.
This is Tom McCutcheon, the manager at the Heritage Centre.
When Downpatrick found that Brushock was pregnant, he actually sold them to a druid. But even as a young girl, the druid spotted how special Brigid was, and he freed them, and they went back to Downpatrick. But obviously she caused little issues through life just because she was kind. She wanted to upgrade people and show people there was a way forward. She was pious. There is a story that says that she asked God to make her less attractive to men so she wouldn't have to marry. Oh. And she was ordained a nun, I think, at the age of 16, very young. When she wanted to build her church, for instance, she had no land, she had nothing. She went to the King of Leinster, and the King of Leinster was quite notoriously mean, but she persisted and kept at him, so much that he got frustrated. He said, you can have as much land as your cloak can cover. But when St. Brigid laid down her cloak, it spread and spread and covered the 5,000 acres of the Curragh Plains, which locally is known as St. Brigid's pastures. So there was nothing he could do except give her the land.
There are so many traditions associated with St. Brigid. What's the significance about people tying cloth outside the windows on the eve of St. Brigid's Day?
This is the Brat Breathe. And even if you go down to St. Brigid's Well, where people hang it on the tree, the Clutie tree, it's a similar thing. The original tradition was to dip it in the water and then put it on the element, then hang it. And they said that as it deteriorated, the ailment would disappear. People would walk around the well a number of times and say a prayer and then leave an offering, which might be an icon, a rose of beads. So that's why you see so many of these different things down at the wells. They're very emotive and powerful traditions. But if I was to go down to the well now, I would know thousands of people have been through this year, because as St. Brigid's Day comes up, it almost reminds them to go to the wells. And wells are very special because, one, water is a source of life, but it was also seen as having healing powers. In pre-Christian times, it was seen as the doorway to the underworld, or the womb of Danu, the goddess of the earth and the life source.
There are hundreds of these wells all around Ireland. But just outside Kildare, by a babbling brook, is one of the most important Brigid's wells in the country. So naturally, we wanted to go and see it. Tom led the way.
This is the doorway to the other world, and it was our connection which you could pass through the water into the womb of Mother Earth. These are traditions I don't think are necessarily only focused on Ireland. They came from other cultures as well. So I think over time some may have changed, traditions may slightly have changed, but the ethos of how they all set up is basically the same. So it's a lovely thing because these are open to everybody. And there's lovely continuity because the goddess was seen as the goddess of abundance. And when she's talking about the movement from winter to spring, it was also from dark to light. Spring was the time of rebirth, and winter was almost kind of the end of life. So here you are, the movement from one to the other, the positive, all the plants were sprouting up, the birds were singing, new hatchlings. Out on the Curragh Plains, you'd see the new lambs. It's a real spectacle, actually, when you see it in the springtime. It's a time that people visit the wells, and it's lovely because those 4 Celtic cycles, it's lovely to see people actually connecting with them once more. When I was growing up, there wasn't as much connection. I think people lost their way, and this is finding their way back.
On our way back to the car, we passed a second well, by which a gathering of women danced around a fire led by Adele, who was hosting a pagan ritual in honour of St. Brigid. The light was starting to dim, the branches of the oak trees silhouetted against the darkening blue sky, and a murder of crows cawed high above. The women circled the fire, sipped ceremonial honey wine, and threw rose petals onto the flames. So obviously, I just had to join in. What we've stumbled upon is this incredible pagan ceremony. We're summoning the 4 elements. People are stamping their feet and waving their arms around right next to the well, and now everyone's picking up last year's Brigid's crosses, ready to throw the old into the fire. But what's great is that as part of this group ceremony, 2 other people on their own separate missions have come along. There's a guy who's barefoot, and he's standing in the well, and another woman was barefoot walking into the well and donating something into it, collecting the water as well. It's incredible to see this amalgamation of everything coming together. Someone can just say, oh, I'm on my mission, but hey, can I throw my cross in at the end? That I had no idea there was this sacred heritage that was adhered to by so many to this day, that you could call a group of people and say, hey, we're doing this ceremony for Brigid, and this is what's happened. The spirit of Brigid is here, yeah. And she's dancing around a fire.
Let us call on those ancient wise ones to be here as we release.
The smell of that sage burning on the fire, and the petals as well, the rose petals. It's gorgeous. And then watching the crosses from last year burn, there's something just so profound about seeing it burn, and it feels so ancient. Fire is a common theme when it comes to St. Brigid's Day. All around the country, there were parades and processions led by fire dancers and performers. Now, in all my years in Ireland, I've seen my fair share of St. Patrick's Day parades, but I've never seen anything quite like this. Oh, it's starting with the procession of lanterns. And I can see there's a woman standing in the middle of a giant ring with candles burning all around her. I don't know if it's going to move, but that's pretty impressive. You're kind of transfixed by these women. So there's 4 of them that I can see now, and they're all twirling. Well, she's really spinning around those candles. Just like a sort of an earthy movement and going with your instinct, and kind of like calling in the fire at the well. Like a kind of sacred movement. There is something mythical, because we're a little bit further back from the crowd. I'd say we're about 10 people deep. You actually can't see the float. You can't see the bottom or how they're moving. Just these sort of floating lanterns that look like half moon shapes or crescents, or they almost look like ancient Viking boats, actually. And there are these women, these Brigids, standing up at the top with these beautiful golden crowns. Yeah, it's unreal. It's unlike any other parade or event that I've seen in Ireland. It's just beautiful. The procession ended in a huge display of fire and dance just around the corner from St. Brigid's Cathedral. But inside, the celebrations were turning musical, with a concert led by some of Ireland's most beloved singers.
Good evening, everyone. Banachtaí Féile Bríd Díobh Kildare. I am so delighted to be here as part of this Brigid 1500 celebration with tonight's She Moved to the Fair. Tonight we honour St. Brigid as one of the founding great women of our culture. And St. Brigid, I'm discovering, can be all things to all people. A pagan goddess, a saint, and an empowering symbol of female leadership.
The sound echoes under the huge vaulted stone ceiling as the lights are dimmed in a hushed room. Standing among crumbling stone effigies, the musicians waited in the wings by the altar, ready to take to the stage.
One evening fair to take the air down by Blackwater side, and gazing all around me, a handsome lad I spied, a handsome lad I spied.
There's a lovely, lovely kind of saying, prayer really, in a way, and it says, Goigi Morgúine, Foscagi Borsula, agus Ligigi Sta Bríd, Shebeha, 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 Namra Westla. And that means get on your knees, open your eyes, and let Brigid in.
This is Moya Brennan, another one of the evening's performers.
It's lovely that we now have another patron saint of Ireland and a woman saint in Ireland. Because, I think we needed that. There's a bank holiday and everything, but it's just the recognition. And it's great.
And this is such a beautiful setting for a concert as well. It must be a really special space to sing in here.
It's absolutely gorgeous singing here. Just the whole atmosphere with the old stone and everything.
You can make me believe with your lying tongue that the sun rose in the west.
Tonight is a celebration of St. Brigid, her female power, her beauty, her kindness.
This is folklorist and musician Lisa Lamb, a woman with flame red hair who could well pass as St. Brigid herself.
Kildare is actually called the Church of Oak Wood, so you'll see in a lot of the stained glass windows here in this very cathedral her associations with light, with candles, with Imbolc, obviously the start of spring. There's so many beautiful, very simple kind of associations with her, but she is a woman of nature, a woman of fertility and new beginnings, and I really admire her, and I'm so glad that this evening I'm going to get to sing some of these very, very old songs. There's one called Donal Óg, which is one of the oldest Gaelic love songs, definitely sung on roadsides and handed down from generation to generation on nights where people would go scríochting or going ag bahantiocht, which is the tradition of going night visiting, going from house to house and sitting around the hearth it's wonderful in these occasions to get to bring these songs to life and reimagine them, all in the name of beautiful St. Bridget.
We're moving into this new era of Brigid now. What do you think Brigid means for the sort of modern day Irish woman?
Well, I think it's a chance for us to actually slow down a little and mark an occasion. I travelled a lot in America over the years with my music, and I loved how St. Patrick was so part of being Irish abroad. And I hope St. Bridget, with time, will receive the same recognition, not only here in Ireland, but also abroad. I just think there's a great earthiness to her as a human, not only as a saint, or as we now call her, a goddess, but, you know, there's a goddess in all of us. And I think that the little things that people associate with her, which are her kindness to strangers, all those little things I think are extraordinary in the ordinary. And that's something that I really am drawn to as a modern day artist and as a folklorist and as a lover of St. Bridget. I'm very honoured to be here.
It wasn't until 2023 that St. Bridget's Day was made into a national holiday. And so, under a sunny sky the following day, I go and meet the poet and activist Laura Murphy to find out exactly how that came to be. And as it turns out, a lot of that credit went to an organisation called Her Story.
Their mission was to illuminate the stories of female role models across multidisciplinary platforms of art, storytelling, education. Tracy O'Connor had the idea to create a petition to have Brigid's Day honoured as a national holiday. That was the start of us really communicating to the government that the women of Ireland are speaking, the people of Ireland are speaking here. Brigid has been with us. Her flame has never been extinguished. It maybe became quiet and small for a while, but it was never extinguished, and she was always a huge inspiration to the Irish people. But in the petition we were saying it's really time that we honoured a woman, specifically Brigid, in the same way as St. Patrick is honoured. I wrote a letter to the Taoiseach which drew attention to the fact that the omission of the feminine out of the collective psyche that happened around the time of the creation of our constitution, that had a significant negative impact on society as a whole.
I think something I've been thinking about a lot as I've learned more about St. Bridget is the relationship between those strong female characters. All of these strong women that we've had that are such an important part of the tapestry of Ireland.
W.B. Yeats gets an awful lot of credit, rightly so, for his poetic inspiration that he gave to the people to give them the sense of power to rise up. But he was inspired and influenced by Maud Gonne, Ella Young, Countess Markovich, Lady Augusta Gregory, and my letter really wanted to show the power of the Irish women, the legacy of the Irish women, and how that connects back into Brigid, who goes back thousands of years into our prehistory as a goddess and who was a saint, and it's time for her to be honoured.
We've been learning a lot about Brigid as the goddess, and then as the woman, and then as the saint. So who is Brigid to you?
Brigid to me is in essence an archetype. In my view, she is an aspect of our collective consciousness that's available to everybody. When I'm writing my poetry, when I'm doing my activism work, which mostly entails writing, I use the gift of the goddess, which is imbis ferocne. It's an ancient Irish term which means illuminated inspiration. The ancient Fili, which is the Irish word for poet, which also means seer, they got their powers from the goddess Brigid. So in ancient Ireland, they were equal in significance to the king in Irish society. Incredibly, St. Patrick banned imbis ferocne it was 433 AD, when he came and Christianized Ireland. He lit the Paschal fire, and that heralded the birth of the new Christian ways and the death of our ancient pagan ways. But with that, he banished the practice of imbis ferocne. And it's all been but written out of history. But it was on that pilgrimage, on the Hill of Slane, where Patrick lit the Paschal fire. On that very site, I had a spontaneous experience of imbis ferocne. I didn't know what it was then, but luckily the Druid Emer Burke was on the pilgrimage with us, and when I described my mystical experience that had happened, she said, "That sounds like imbis ferocne." So all of this poetry started to flow out of me from nowhere. And I believe that that was the start of the impetus that was given to me to allow me to, 10 years later, to do the work that I did, that played my part in bringing Brigid's Day in.
That moment of impetus that you felt at the Hill of Slane, how did that feel? What was the experience like?
Great question, and I'm tearing up now as you ask. I had walked for 3 days with a thorn on the sole of my foot that I had picked up at the start. Don't know how I did it, but on pilgrimage, everything happens for a reason. So I had the thorn in my foot, and I had the cross as we were walking up the Hill of Slane, because we were each taking a turn to hold the cross for the group. And there was a fire ready to be lit up on top of the hill, the exact spot that St. Patrick lit the Paschal fire. And I didn't know that he had lit it then. I didn't know the significance of the place at all. We sat by the fire. A friend of ours, Enda, he lit the fire and then started to drum. And when he started to drum, I went into this very deep trance state that I had never been in before, and it was quite uncomfortable. It felt as if I was being sucked in. I don't know if you've had the feeling of ever fainting, but it felt like you were just being sucked into darkness or sucked into the land, and could barely perceive that other people were saying things and that we were being invited to say something. Then it was my turn to say something. I couldn't articulate anything, but what wanted to come through was Maud Gonne's motto, which was through fire to the light. So I just said that again out of nowhere. I don't know why I said it. It was the only thing I was able to say. And the more I said it, the more I was coming around and the more I felt better. And then the ceremony had ended, and then I looked up and I saw through an aperture in the trees there was this beam of light coming through the trees directly into the fire. And I remembered I had the Brigid's cross, and I said, oh my God, I'm going to put Brigid's cross into this beam of light. And then I realised the beam of light had actually been going through me where I was sitting. So the mantra that I ended up invoking was describing this event that nature responded to, unbeknownst to myself. And then straight away, I couldn't feel the thorn in my foot anymore. So the pain that had been with me for 3 days went. There was this sense of illumination, of joy. Poetry started to come out of nowhere.
We walk outside to the butterfly garden at the historic Kildare Hotel to have Laura share some of that poetry with us.
I am of the sky. I am of the earth. Dreaming in truth since the day of my birth. Is misha on Allah sa spare. Is misha on Nahar Fuin Talav.
As she speaks and the wind gusts almost in rhythm with her verse, I look down and see a face staring up at me from a stone. It's just a trick of the mind, but it leaps out at me so suddenly as she recites the words.
I am the gentle light that guides you, the fiery arrow that carries you, the blazing fire that fuels you. I am she who is goddess. I am she who is saint. I am she who is strength. I am she, I am she, I am she. Is Misha Brigid.
Oh, I have full body tingles. I looked, okay, now it doesn't. I looked down and this had a face, I swear.
Oh my God.
Swear to God.
Keep that.
I can't see it now, but that was the nose. Do you actually, when you go down?
I see it.
I totally see that in that.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
That's like a Sheila na gig.
Yes, it is Sheila na gigs. That was the other thing I was thinking with the strong Irish figures. It does look like a Sheila na gig. There's almost, look, can you see the sort of knot in it?
Wow. Keep that forever.
And it was just as you started, Ishmisha Brigid, and I looked down and saw it.
People think you're mad, but ancient Irish wisdom tradition was all about animism. It was all about there's a force in things, and they put themselves into stone, like the forces or the archetypes, because they were animating. So I like that. That happened for a reason.
From there, we journey on in search of a different kind of celebration. Instead of pagan ceremony or a poetic experience, it's time for a bit of good old-fashioned Irish crack or fun. The Pedal Parade is a community event where hundreds of local people dress up and hop on their bikes for a collective cycle that ends in a zero-waste picnic, all in the spirit of St. Brigid, of course.
We've come down to Salins on the edge of the Grand Canal, and there are about, I'd say, 400 to 500 people here, led by a glorious woman dressed as St. Brigid. Carmel is leading the parade here, and there are loads of kids in various costumes. We've got little bumblebees, we have a couple of bats, we have dogs that are joining in the fun, and the spirit of community as well.
I don't think we expected this.
This is an amazing turnout,
because
isn't
it's
it?
the first time we've ever done anything like this, and it's first for Kildare. And it's just a group of mums who were very socially aware and socially conscious, and they decided we'd like to try something like this. It's amazing.
It's so great seeing all of the kids dressed up and the bikes decorated.
I know. They've been spending weeks making the flames and the snowdrops and the pansies. It's gorgeous. It really is.
And you look amazing.
Thank
Your
you.
headpiece
Don't
is
I?
Glorious.
Everything has to be sustainable. Everything, like there's little boys here dressed as Batman. And they're allowed because they had them for Halloween, and we have bats along the canal, so they're allowed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as long as you've already owned it. My lantern is 24 years old.
It's just brilliant. Oh, there's a little dragon there, and oh, there's great costumes. People are really into it. Your costume's amazing.
Thank you. So everything is made from repurposed materials. We've sourced all these bits from different places. So lots of things are made from repurposed yoga mats.
Cool.
There's stuff made from all sorts of sourced fabrics. So that's the point, was that we could have a conversation about biodiversity, because the biodiversity in Salins is incredible. Swans, herons, kingfishers. And we could also have a conversation about cycling and recycling.
All right, folks, we're nearly ready to go here. I think they weren't expecting the crowd they've got, but it's massive. It's stretching back probably it's like the Dublin Marathon when they used to run it. I think it's stretching back nearly 90, 80 metres. So here's the organiser running up now. She's ready to get on her bike. Yay! All right, let's do this. All right, folks, let's go.
Kildare has rightfully claimed Brigid as one of their own. This isn't the only county in Ireland that has ties to the saint. Our journey took us 3 hours north to the town of Downpatrick, just over the border in Northern Ireland. But first, we made a little pit stop to a place along the way that I felt we just simply couldn't miss. As soon as Laura started speaking about that feeling of imbus that she felt in the Hill of Slane, I knew I wanted to see it myself. And so we've come, and I'm so glad that we did. You know, this is the spot where St. Patrick lit a fire in the year 433 AD that changed the history of Ireland, changed the story of Ireland. And there's a beautiful monastery here, there's a graveyard, and this would have dated back to the 1500s. And what I love about Ireland is that this is so open and accessible. It's not behind a velvet rope. You can just come here, you can walk up the hill, and you'll be walking on the same earth that St. Patrick would have walked on, and it's the same grass, it's the same mud, it's the same squelch under your boots as you're walking up the hill. None of that changes, and it's incredibly special to experience that and to feel that environment all around you. This is the college. So this dates back to around the 1500s as well. It's so open. You can just walk in. We're in the bowels of the building now, and incredible views through the old stone, sort of thick, windowless
shapes in the brick, and you can just hear the water's dripping down from the rocks into these little puddles. It's really quite something. I think that's a spiral staircase in the corner next to the other window, so I guess we could just walk up and see what's up there. I'm coming to the top, I think. I can see light. These steps are steep. Wow. You can come out completely on the second story of this building and you can see the remains of the abbey, but then you've also got this glorious sight of Ireland. The hills and the fields and these gnarled tree branches. The light is just dimming now, so everything looks that bit more dramatic and gorgeous anyway with the fading light. But it's one thing to think about the dates of when all this happened and to so casually throw around like 433 AD is when Patrick lit the fire just there, and these buildings were finished and vibrant in the 1500s, and now they're undoubtedly ruins, and you can see the age of the stone and how it's weathered and how the moss is fossilized, but you've got these plants in between the cracks that are growing, and it just really makes you feel like you're a part of the history. You can feel the spirit of Brigid as you stand here on this incredible site.
Over the past few days, we'd learned about the many different sides of Brigid. There was the poet, the pagan, the goddess, the saint. And while a lot of the elements of Brigid are fairly theoretical, there's one landmark that feels rather more solid. We headed to the pretty town of Downpatrick to see the legacy up close and to visit what many believe to be her final resting place.
There's such a big celebration in Ireland this year because it's the 1500-year anniversary of her death.
This is the aptly named Brigid Watson, a tour guide from Downpatrick.
She lived to the year 524, and then after her death she was buried beside the high altar in Kildare in her church, but she's no longer there.
Legend goes that Brigid is now buried here in Downpatrick. As we walk past the Georgian stone buildings and winding side streets, we head up the hill to the skyline-dominating spire of Down Cathedral. In the graveyard that encircles the church, there are old Celtic crosses marking the tombs, engraved with knots, spirals, and ancient markings.
We are on Cathedral Hill, and it is one of the most important ancient spiritual sites on the island of Ireland, because here on this hill are buried the three patron saints of Ireland, St Patrick, St Brigid and St Columkill, who was also known as St Columba. So in the 9th century, the Vikings were attacking, they were coming here raiding the monasteries because the monasteries were centres of wealth, and the Vikings wanted to get the silver and gold and any other valuables. So the people feared that her burial place would be disturbed by the Vikings, and they thought the best thing to do was to move her remains from Kildare, and they were brought here to Downpatrick. And she is buried on Cathedral Hill, and also buried here is St Columkill. St Columkill had the gift of prophecy, and when he was alive he prophesied that he would be buried under a flagstone with Patrick and Brigid, and so it came to pass.
I think of her as all the unknown women, and partly she means women reclaiming somebody important of their own. Even if we know nothing about the actual person, we just call it Brigid. We're all remaking her anyway, and we're all imagining her because we don't really know that much. So she's basically a kind of all-purpose figure.
This is the poet Gráinne Tobin. We meet with her in Saul Church, a teeny tiny abbey, which apparently is where St Patrick died. But this isn't about Patrick. We're here to talk about Brigid.
So, I mean, Brigid as the defender of women and the patron of midwives and fertility and reproduction, and of course lots of people will say abortion as well. Well, I don't know very much about that, but I think it's an example of how we all take Brigid and think, yo-ho, that's our Brigid.
So the idea of us appropriating Brigid to turn her into something we all need her to be individually, do you think that can ever be a good thing?
I think it's totally a good thing. Yes. I mean, we don't know enough about her historically to be able to tell what she was really like. So, I mean, I'm very, well, I was going to say guilty, except I'm not guilty. I'm delighted of doing that myself. But of course, she's also very significant to me.
We asked Gráinne to share with us a poem that she wrote. Now, at the time, she hadn't thought that she was writing it with Brigid in mind. But maybe there was another little bit of imbus ferochne at play.
This time 6 years ago, our first grandchild was born, and I just couldn't believe how completely overwhelmed I was, because the labour went on too long, because being first-timers, they had said jovially, oh, we're going to the hospital, it'll be a few hours now, and then, you know, a whole day later and a whole day. So eventually I said to my English husband, who's had no contact worth having with organised religion, he's no ancestral memory of any of this. I said, I have to go and find a holy well, I have to do something. And he said, yeah, I feel exactly the same. So the two of us set off for the only Brigid's well that we knew about, which was in the town I came from. But we had to look it up on GPS because I didn't know where it was. I knew there was one. You know where we found it? Behind the rugby club in Armagh, next to a car park. So we brought a rose with us and we left this rose at St. Brigid's well. I was acting like a pilgrim because I wanted to ally myself with all the thousands of women who'd done that kind of thing before, even though I had no expectation that anything supernatural would happen as a result. Just tying your little bit of energy to all that human willpower and all that strength and all that suffering, that had really got to me. I ended up writing this poem called Fine Rightly. Fine rightly is what they said in Armagh when I was a child. If you want to say you know something, you say, well, I know fine rightly. And what it means is, I'm not going to explain how I know, but sure, everybody knows, like the dogs in the street know. And, you know, when people say, you're very spiritual, I get so cross. And I wouldn't count this as spiritual, but I do think there's an inner life and there's the inner life of humanity. So if you're going to call that a soul, I'm happy to go along with calling it that.
We asked Gráinne to read Fine Rightly for us, standing inside the church, her words bouncing off the stone walls and throughout the small, echoing space as the light spills through the stained glass window.
Fine rightly. Why don't we have a cross of folded reeds, cartwheeling along our kitchen lintel? We want to chant. We want a square of tin stamped with the image of a baby to lay in a cave in the mountains. We cannot help but know of wounds no cures can heal, a woman held in extremity, a trial by ordeal, which pins her to the edge of her power, turns her inside out and back again. In February, when it's all gone on too long across the water and we're pacing the house, unable to do anything to help our son or his gallant girl or their baby, whose moving into life is so delayed, we let ourselves be led by urges beyond reason to fertility goddess tales, sham Celtic rigmaroles, for a fruitful spring at Imbolc or the feast of Brigid. Prayer's never a temptation, knowing right.
The story of Brigid is wild, complicated, and yes, a little bit bonkers at times. But over the course of this journey, I've realised how unimportant it is to try and figure out exactly who she was. Instead, it's much better to collect all of these different stories, gather all of the different beliefs, and to take away the most important messages, those of kindness, generosity, and compassion.
The phone. It's done. A perfect child, lifted to safety from his mother's womb. She's well, she's smiling at her baby. Our son now has a son. We're all reborn. I lean against the car, crying and shaking, overcome as any pilgrim.
Walk down alone when you cross the ocean. Take me with you when you are going.
We've reached the end of our journey, and I want to thank you for being here with us. Thanks also to everyone who featured in this episode. Judith Boyle from Boyle's Pub, Phil O'Shea from Soulless Breed, Tom McCutcheon from the Kildare Heritage Centre, musicians Lisa Lamb and Moya Brennan, Brigid Watson from Sustainable Journeys Ireland, and poets Laura Murphy and Grania Tobin. You can see all of those names and websites in the show notes as well. Also, much of the music that you've heard in this episode was recorded live in St. Brigid's Cathedral. Thank you to Hot Press for helping with the recording, and thanks to all the performers from that evening as well. And a big thanks to Paula O'Brien of Brigid 1500 for helping us on site. If you want to learn more about booking your own trip to experience the sights and attractions we've explored today, go to ireland.com or follow them on social media at Tourism Ireland. Thanks for listening. This show was produced by Armchair Productions, the audio experts for the travel industry. Jason Patton recorded, mixed and sound designed the show. Charles Tyree helped with the editing. Jenny Allison and Aaron Miller produced it. I'm Nicola Brady. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to this Armchair Explorer on location episode. I had a ton of fun making it. I hope you had a ton of fun coming along with me. Next week, we'll be back with our usual format, and then there'll be lots more on location stuff to come.
Quick question. Do you want travel tips from people who have actually been there?
Our show is co-hosted by Tim Johnson, an award-winning travel journalist who's been to more than 145 countries around the world. And I'm David Brody, the other co-host who's been travel podcasting for 20 years while traveling to 50-plus countries around the world.
In about 10 or 20 minutes per show, we break down a destination with the kind of insight you usually only get from long guidebooks or hours of research.
So if you want expert advice, zero fluff, and travel inspiration that you can actually use, search for Travel in 10 wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can also find us at boyescape.com.
Hi, I'm Pauline Fromer, host of the Fromers Travel Podcast. We post new episodes weekly, detailing the kinds of money-saving tips and cultural insights that will make your trips richer without making you significantly poorer. We do so by interviewing real travel experts like TV host Samantha Brown, Fromers authors from around the globe, and such public figures as Free Solo's Alex Honnold. It's a fun travel party. I hope you can join us.